Hey everyone, welcome back to my workshop. I've been reading through some of the comments on previous videos and there are some really good questions out there, and one of them I wanted to address is how do you align your work to a piece when you're going to engrave it? And so I wanted to just take a quick little bit of time here to go over what I do and how I set up Lightburn and how I change a couple settings on how it interacts with my laser so that I can use it to use the framing tool and align the laser to the object I'm engraving. So we're going to look at that, possibly engraving this bottle opener blank, coaster blank, and we'll even try to see if we can get this aluminum bottle opener engraved and looking aligned. So if that's something that interests you, stick around. We're going to jump right into it.
Okay, to get started with this, we need to go into Lightburn, and we're actually going to adjust some device settings. And so in mine, I actually have multiple devices. So you do want to know, if you're like me and you have a couple different lasers that you're working with, this is something you're going to do per device. So we're going to go ahead and select the device we want. In this case, we're working with the ComGrow Z1. Make sure that's your active device. And then we want to come up to the Edit menu and then come down to Device Settings. As you see here, this is the device settings for the ComGrow Z1, so this will only apply to this laser. The feature we're looking to enable is Enable Laser Fire Button. What this does is it allows you to turn on the laser outside your job, and this will be useful for framing and positioning. Now you can also enable this where it's laser on while firing, and that's if you wanted to always turn the laser on while framing. You'll want to be careful with this, and I'll show you another setting you want to adjust before really turning that on. I like to leave it off because what we can do is by having Enable Laser Fire Button on but this off, it won't turn the laser on by default when you hit frame. But when we hit the Shift key and hit frame, then that will turn the laser on while framing. Now once we've got that done, we want to come back into our main screen here, and you'll find your Move tab. And on here, this is the power setting. By default, it's set to 0, which is good. What you're going to want to do is you want to turn it on to 0.5%, maybe 1%. It's going to depend on your specific laser on how well it fires at those lower percentages and how well you can see it. It really shouldn't take much power, and by doing this, you're going to really reduce the risk of it actually burning through your material. Because if you had this set up at 1020 or more, it's definitely going to be a hot laser and cause some issues. So you want to make sure this is down low. The other thing you want to look at is your speed. This is your manual movement speed. So if you were to use these buttons here while moving the laser around, it adjusts how quickly it does that, but it also adjusts how quickly it frames. So I like to bump this down to give me more time while it is framing. So take it down to like 20 or 30 millimeters a second. Or if you're in millimeters per minute, that'll be times 60. And so bump that down quite a bit so that it doesn't go so rapidly. And then you can also test fire. If you click this button, you'll see the laser come on, and then you can adjust the brightness from there. So you can bump it up a little bit or bump it down, and then go ahead and turn it back off. So what this is effectively going to do is, when we have our object that we want to frame, so say this is our artwork or our engraving or our line stuff, when you hit the frame, the laser is going to come down, usually to the lower left corner first, and it is going to draw a box around your artwork. Now, in this case, it would be exactly around this square. Now, if we had a circle drawn, it is still going to come down to the lowest extent, so approximately here, and it's going to draw a box around this object because it's going to the extreme extents of any of the artwork or objects in your job. Now, there is also the round framing option. What this does is more of a rubber banding type effect. And so if we had two circles, and we'll do this kind of extreme, so kind of like this. What this frame feature is going to do is it's going to come down and it will circle around this one and go as straight as it can to go up against this, and then straight as it can go around that. So it's more of like if you were to take a rubber band around objects, and it was going to wrap around the outside edges as best it can and then make it straight a line. So it gives you a little closer interpretation of what the object is and where it's framing, but not an exact, it's not going to be just going around each object. It's still going around the extents, but with the shortest line between them.
All right, for this next step, I actually have taken the shroud off of my laser module head, so you won't see it on the bottom there. And I'm only doing this so that it is easier to see what we're doing with the framing and the laser power on. I want to make sure that, that it's clear in the video that what I am doing with it. So I don't recommend doing this. I don't recommend running it without that. It is a layer of protection. You want to protect your eyes. On top of that, I have it in the enclosure whenever possible. This one isn't quite necessarily built for this laser, but it works for now. And above all else, get yourself a quality pair of laser safety goggles. Don't necessarily just trust the ones that get sent to you. If there is not a rating on there, so these are a free Mascot brand. They're on Amazon. These actually do fit pretty well over my prescription eyeglasses. And they have right on there, I'll see if I can bring it in for you to see. If not, I'll try to add a photo. But on the top, yeah, and it's not, there we go. Maybe it'll focus on that. On the top, you see the inscription up there. And what it says is 190 to 550 and 800 to 1100 nanometer, as well as an OD6. So that is, the OD is the optical density rating. That's how much light it actually filters out. Obviously higher is better. And then the nanometer, you want to make sure that whatever lenses you get, they match up with the laser types that you're using. These are good because they work on most of the diode lasers, as well as some of the CO2 lasers that I deal with as well. So take care of yourself, take care of your eyes, take care of anybody's eyes that are going to be around the laser as well. Okay, so the other thing that can help in making sure that your items get set up correctly is to actually, for engraving, set up a grid on your spoil board. And you want to do this by securing the machine in place to the board in such a way that it won't move and that you can put it back and keyed into the same location. That way, when you power it up and engrave this, it's always going to be square on those lines. So I can place an object along this line and understand that that's going to be parallel and square with the machine when I'm running it. So there are a lot of files out there. I will link to this one. This is one actually gotten from LA Hobby Guy. He has a great forum and offers up a lot of files like this. No reason to recreate the wheel. Go check out his forums, go check out his files. You can get the this one. It's meant it's about a 400 by 400 grid, so it fits 90% of these hobby diode lasers out there. Okay, first thing first, we're going to do this simple square. So this would be like a coaster blank. It's about a 1/4 inch, just a little under 4-inch square piece of maple. And so, I mean, one thing that I can do is I can use the square here as a guide to make sure my item is both planes squared up. So I just put it in the corner there. And now, what I want to do is come over into Lightburn. All right, now in Lightburn, I'm going to go ahead and just load in my logo here. And from here, what we want to do is we measured that. That's about 3.5. So I'm going to make this the widest dimension 3 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and select the whole item. Let's go ahead and switch this over to inches for just now. And so I want to keep it locked, the aspect ratio locked. Looks like the height is just a bit taller than the width, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to 3. That will scale my whole item together. And I'm going to go ahead and actually move this to the center of my page, because that's close to where our work is on the laser. So from here, what I'm going to do, so let's just check in our layers. We're not going to do a fill because that'll take too long. I am just going to change this over to an engrave setting. Oops, I've got to select item first. There we go. And we'll just do it to a line. And we're going to adjust our speed to, let's put our power at about 80. And our speed, let's say about 65 millimeters a second. Now I work in millimeters a second because I also work with my CO2 lasers. Those tend to work there, and so I got used to that first. You may be working in millimeters a minute, so then you'd want to obviously multiply that by 60, and you would get your difference there. So you'll see that a lot. People jumping between the two. It's just good to clarify which speed you're working in when you state that. Millimeters per second or millimeters per minute, because they will be a Big difference if you get them screwed up. Okay, so we've got that set up. We've got it sized right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the laser on. And we will home the laser so it can figure out where it is at in the machine. And we're going to be just slightly off center. So we'll be able to see that when I go ahead and hit the frame function with shift, and now we'll see our dot going around, and it is showing us exactly where it's going to engrave. Now we see that it looks like it's high and to the left. So now we can do two things. Since I'm working in absolute coordinates here in Lightburn, I can adjust my coordinates of where my drawing is on the workspace, or I can go ahead and move my material. Now I want to make sure my material is square to the machine, so I'm going to try to move the artwork itself. I need to move it down just a little bit and over to the left just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and reframe this. So there we go. The light's on, and up top to bottom looks like I got it pretty good, but I maybe moved it a little bit far to the left. So now I'm going to bring it back to the right, and this is a bit of a guess and check method of doing it, but it's kind of just the quick, dirty way, and I forgot to hit the shift button when hitting the frame. So we'll go ahead and run that again. There we go, framing on, and visually that looks pretty close. Now, I left about a 1/4 inch border around everything based on my measurements, and maybe we actually need to bump it down just a touch. Yes, we do. That actually looks pretty good. I just want to check left to right one more time. Yeah, I think we're pretty close, and so now we should be able to go ahead and burn this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my smoke extraction on and make sure my glasses are on as well. We'll hit start. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try this again. This time we're going to be using this smaller item, and so I've shimmed it up level and I've refocused it. Now let's go ahead and make sure we rehome the machine. So we're going to go ahead and let the machine find home via the limit switches on this laser. And then what I've done is I've brought in some artwork, American flag with some stars. Coming up on the 4th of July, I thought it'd be a good topic for an engraving on here. And so what we can do is actually use our positioning tool. We can come over here and get approximately in the center of our piece. And what that will do is it's not registering off our item, but it's going to register, we're going to know where our piece is. So now what we can do is we can turn on the fire option in our laser, and we can actually move our piece and center it on there while trying to keep our lines relative. And then I've already sized this down. This should be approximately about just under 10 millimeters tall, which is what this piece is. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the frame button, and we'll see how close we're at. Okay, it looks like maybe just a touch off the top. Let's actually slow this down just a bit and see how far. Just off there, and actually we might be a little crooked with our piece, so this is another good way to align your piece when you don't have grids. You watch the movement of the laser compared to it. I forgot to hit shift for frame. We'll do this again, there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to size this down just a touch. So height, I'm going to bring this down to actually 9. And now let's try this again. Framing it there. Now it looks like it's going to all fit on there. Let me zoom this in, make sure you can see what was going on there. So as you can see, goes right along the line. So let's go ahead, go back to our layers part here, and good to go to hit start. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do one more. We've got this bottle opener blank, and this kind of has this roundish area up here. So what I'm going to try to do is get a round engraving centered on there pretty well. So first off, what I'm going to do is try to get this as close to center as I can, because that's what I've based my artwork off in Lightburn. Alright, so as you see, we've got an 8-ball. And if I select this artwork, you see it's 42.34 millimeters width. I measured the head of that, and it is roughly 50 millimeters in diameter, close to 2 inches. So we're going to try to get this as close, because as you get closer to the edge, the more it's off, you're going to notice it. And this is where we're going to be able to use that rubber banding frame, because it is fairly circular. So once again, I'm going to go and just test my center by turning the fire on under the move tab. So we're going to go ahead and there we go, we've got that on. And we're going to kind of try to eyeball this at first to get this centered and square. But then what we'll do, let's go ahead and zoom in on this. We're going to go ahead and use now our boundary framing. So let's go ahead and hit shift, boundary frame. And you see that it looks like it's a little bit to the right. I'm actually even going to slow this down a little bit more. Let's go ahead and move this over just a touch. And let's try that again. Down. Nope, I got it over too far. So it came out okay. It's still a little bit to the left, but that's a good reason to give yourself plenty of overlap. The more of that border, the less obvious this would be. So you know, if you were going to be doing a bunch of these, I'd probably make a template and a jig to where you can place it, know where the center is, and tell your laser to go there every time. You know, these are just some tips to try to get you using the framing tool within Lightburn to get a closer work on your job. So, okay, well there you have it. We worked through a few different items of how I use the framing tool within Lightburn to do a good job of centering and placing my artwork onto pieces that are abnormal. Hopefully that helps you out. There is one more tip that I'm not going to replicate, but I'm going to send you to another channel. If you go check out LA Hobby Guy, he did a great tutorial on framing in Lightburn, where he actually adds a low power artifact into his artwork to do that outline more specifically. And so instead of trying to recreate the wheel and do that, I'm going to go ahead and link to you guys down there, make that a recommended video. He has a lot of resources on Lightburn and lasers, so go definitely check him out. I referenced his spoil board in here as well, so go check out his forum. Wonderful guy to learn from and listen to. He's got a lot of knowledge to share, and he's happy to share it, so definitely check him out. This is kind of a sneak preview. Next machine I'm working on here is the Comgrow Z1. We're going to have a review of that out very shortly, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, get out in your workshop and have some fun. We'll see you next time.